Welcome to Digital Marketing for Contractors, a podcast for home improvement contractors to help you crush your lead goals and take your business to the next level. Join us each episode as we give you powerful insights and practical tips on the best digital marketing strategies to help you grow your home improvement business. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Digital Marketing for Contractors podcast. This is a podcast all about helping home improvement contractors to crush your lead goals and take your business to the next level. Digital Marketing for Contractors is hosted by Fat Cat Strategies. We are a digital marketing agency based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. My name is Don, and I'm one of the account managers here at Fat Cat.
And I'm Janet. I am the founder and managing partner of Fat Cat Strategies.
And today we are continuing in a little mini series that we are doing on the levels of a contractor business. And
Don, I love this topic.
This is such a fun topic. I know we really enjoy this topic around here at Fat Cat because really what it's about is helping you guys, helping you contractors to be able to figure out where are you at in your business. Where do you want to go? What are your goals? What are things all about? And how can we help you get there? Which is what we really love doing. Yes, we're a marketing agency, but we love being in your business with you and helping you be able to succeed at the things that you want to succeed at. So this is a fun little mini series that we're doing together. Before we dive into our topic for today, I want to remind you that we've got a resource available for you that you can download that will help you to improve your online presence as a business. So if you want to go to fatcatstrategies.com/homeowners, you can download our resource called 5 Reasons That Homeowners Don't Choose You Online and What You Can Do About It. It will give you some great tips and strategies that you can implement right away to be able to improve your online presence and really see your lead numbers go up. So check that out at fatcatstrategies.com/homeowners. Okay, like I said, this is part 2 of 3 of our 3-part mini-series where we are talking about the levels of a contractor business. And Janet, just for the sake of review, why don't we just kind of very quickly go over what are the 3 levels that we have been talking about? Can you give us kind of just a brief overview of those?
Level 1, we've kind of loosely categorized that as you're just trying to survive. You've decided to start your own business for whatever insane reason, and you're out and you're doing it, and you're just trying to make it through each day.
You're making it work.
You are making it work one way or the other, and you're paying your bills. That's level 1.
Yeah.
Once you reach the end of level 1, you kind of start to look around and you're like, hey, I think this is working. I think this is working. I think I can make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's level 2. Level 2, you are starting to put processes together. You're starting to think about scaling. You
got staff on board.
You're hiring staff. You're thinking about standard operating procedures. And then level 3, you've gone well beyond all of your staffing. You've got great people in place. You've got you yourself are a great leader, and you've trained other leaders. And that level 3, you are really in that rarefied air where you dominate your local market. You have name brand recognition, like a household name for the trades that you represent.
Yeah, it's kind of the dream for most of our contractors.
Yeah, it's the dream.
Yeah.
That level 3, I call it rarefied air because there can be a ton of really successful contractors that are making a lot of money that aren't at that level 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the title of this episode is Level Up Your Contractor Business. And so what we really want to talk about today is how to get from one level to the next. So kind of what it looks like to be able to go from level 1 to level 2, and what it looks like to go from level 2 to level 3, because as we mentioned in the first part of this little mini series, growth as a contractor business is never linear. It is not just one thing to the next. And even as you describe, the levels 1, 2, and 3, it really just kind of hits me again. Like each of those 3 levels almost looks like completely different businesses, right? I mean, it's like the levels are so different one to the next. It's just kind of a stark reminder that what you do in one level is not going to be what makes you successful in the next level. And so that's sometimes a really like hard concept to kind of mentally wrap your mind around. But I think as a contractor, it can be even harder to like concretely like wrap my day-to-day activities around. Like, how do I actually move from, okay, this is what I've been used to doing all along and it's been working, and now you're telling me like, I got to do something completely different. Yeah. That's hard to do.
One of the things that you've said many times, Don, is this whole idea of growth from one phase to the next in your business is not linear. It is not. It is not a straight line on that classic, time on one axis and money on the other axis. It doesn't just go straight up and to the right. So when you are thinking about growing to the next level or the next phase of your business, oftentimes it takes a lot of risk and a lot of courage, and you kind of have to get out ahead of things, and you might need to make an investment in something that makes that line look a lot more jagged. There's peaks and valleys along that, up and right trajectory.
Yeah. You gotta be willing to maybe to take a little dip in this season so that you can make a bigger climb in the next season.
Right. You may have a really great year and have maybe your highest profit year ever, and then take a step back and say, wait, maybe that's a warning sign. Maybe I'm understaffed to take on the challenges of next year. Or maybe I need to invest in some new equipment, or maybe I need to invest in, I don't know, trucks or a different warehouse.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good.
That's what we're talking about. It doesn't look linear.
That's
and
right.
Sometimes you have to go on instinct and, your experience so far to know when to take that next leap.
Yeah. So there's a number of things that we can talk about here in terms of progressing from one level to the next. And so I want to just kind of lay out a little bit of what we want to talk about today and what we're going to save for the next episode, because we're a digital marketing agency. So marketing is kind of our area of expertise. And so we want to actually devote a whole episode to just marketing. So in the next episode, you're going to hear us talk a lot about how to really grow, how to level up your marketing from one level to the next. So today we're not going to talk about marketing at all. We're kind of going to talk about everything else. Like what's the rest of the picture look like for your business and how to be able to move from one level to the next. So let me get us started here, because you kind of teased this in our last episode, and I think this is a great way to kind of to kick us off. And I'll just use that metaphor because I think it fits here. So when we're talking about moving from one level to the next, and in particular going from level 1 to level 2, one of the metaphors that we really like to use is kind of this idea of you as the owner, your role really has to start looking less and less like a quarterback and more like a coach. So as you're moving from level 1 to level 2, you're going to kind of progress from a quarterback to a coach. And what we mean by that is this idea that you're no longer just the star player. Like in level 1, you are the guy. Like all of the weight of the success of your company rests on your shoulders. Same kind of way that the quarterback.
You're meeting the homeowners. You are measuring the job. You're ordering the materials. You're managing the subs. You're creating the estimates, you're collecting the check, and you're driving it to the bank.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if it isn't for you, it doesn't get done. That, and that's kind of the idea of the quarterback. Like
that's at level 1.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's not sustainable. And you know it. Like you can probably feel it as you are, inching towards the end of that level 1 phase. You can just tell, like, I am tapped out. Like I don't have more hours to give. I don't have more energy, more focus. There's just no more ability for you to do more. So if you're going to scale up your business, you got to find a different way of doing things. And that's really what this coach mentality is all about, is beginning to say, okay, it's not just me being successful, but I got to start to lead others in us being successful together. And that's a whole different way of thinking about it.
It is a whole different way of thinking about it. You are starting to look around not only to add staff. That'll be, step 1. You go from being the quarterback, the person that does everything, to starting to fill in some of those lower administrative tasks. Who can answer my phone? Who can drive the check to the bank? Who can balance my checkbook? Who can maybe order supplies or help with, like, at least the preparing quotes? Maybe not be the one to deliver them, but to prepare them.
Yeah. Yeah. And even as you say that, one of the things that I was thinking about was like, okay, so if we're talking about like adding staff as a way of kind of building a team and kind of moving into this coach mentality, like how do we think about who you should add? Like who needs to be your first hire? And I think more often than not, we usually see contractors kind of start with something like an office manager, some kind of equivalent of an office manager. But that's usually because most of the contractors that we've worked with would say that those are the things that they enjoy the least, right?
Yes, absolutely. That kind of catch-all paperwork person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a really good office manager is a great staff position to hire. I have also seen contractors, the contractors that I've worked with over the years sort of fall into really two big categories. I've worked with contractors who are born and bred, tradesmen. They got started as a carpenter, or I had a client who got started doing fiberglass repairs on boats, and that led him into doing, acrylic bathroom installs because he was doing like repairs on bathtubs and then grew it from there. So that's category one. Owners who started off as the tradesperson. Yeah. The other category that I've seen, and both of these categories I've seen be very successful. The other category of owner I've seen is somebody who first and foremost is a sales and marketing guy.
Yeah.
And he understands this is a machine, and I'm building the machine to be a sales and marketing machine that's going to generate leads that I'm going to fulfill with a product or service.
Yeah.
And that category of guy, I've had that type of person, that type of contractor say to me, it doesn't even matter what I'm installing. It could be shutters, it could be awnings, it could be siding.
Yeah.
I'm building a lead generation machine. So it kind of depends on which of those two categories you are. Are you the trades guy or are you the sales and marketing guy? Because probably your first hire is going to be in the area where, you're maybe weaker.
Yeah. Either the part that you don't enjoy as much or that you just don't know as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you take my example of the guy who built a very successful bath remodel business and sold it, one of his first hires was a really fantastic project manager.
Yeah.
Because he was really passionate about the marketing. And he was like, you know what? I need somebody who can lead one crew in the beginning and multiple crews and then build out a system of crews.
Yeah.
And that's what he hired.
Yeah. So that's great. And that's exactly what we're kind of talking about in terms of this idea of being a coach, like recognizing what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, how do you bring on team members that can help kind of augment your weaknesses so that you're building a stronger team. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's kind of that idea is beginning to recognize like, okay, it's time to start hiring. Who and, for what kind of roles do you need to hire and how do you begin to move in that direction? But I think another kind of marker here for like leveling up from 1 to 2 is starting to recognize that like when you're in this level 1 contractor place, you're kind of at the place of just like getting any work that you can get. Now, obviously you're doing it in your trade and your, specific industry, but you're not always necessarily that picky about the jobs that come your way. You're just trying to get work. And in level 2, you're really starting to try to say, I need to get the right kind of work. I need to start finding the right kinds of jobs that are really what our business can be successful at. And maybe that's because this is where our return is going to be the best. This is where we're going to make the most profit.
Where we can systemize and scale.
Yeah, exactly. Or it might also be like, hey, this is what we really are experts at and what we can really be known for in our market. And, that's great too. But it's figuring out like, what is the right kind of work for our business and how do we start to really make sure that we're going after those kinds of leads? Yeah,
the decisions I've seen some of our clients make when they hit that phase is often they'll decide to cut out repairs.
Yeah.
Let's say it's a roofing contractor and, they've been doing these small repairs. It's not a full roof replacement.
Right.
Once they get enough of their machine up and running, so they're generating enough leads and they're putting out enough quotes to keep their crews busy doing full roof replacements. Once they get to that point, then they can go, you know what? I don't think we need to do these repair jobs anymore.
Yeah.
Or we have also seen the flip of that. We have seen so one of our contractors that was doing roofing and siding get enough requests for repairs that they decide to staff an entire repair division.
Yeah.
So rather than turning their nose up and going, we don't do those stinking repairs. We only do the whole roof. I had a contractor look at me and say, you know what, there's volume there. And if we could do it right, if we could do it really well, and if I could staff it, have maybe a different phone number or a different division, definitely have a different manager, that could be its own business line.
Right.
But those are the kind of decisions that we see contractors make when they're really on that path towards scaling. They start to look at things with a different perspective. If you take the repair example, they either go, you know what, I used to have to do repairs just to, make the end of the month work. And now I don't have to anymore. And then on the flip of that, I'm going to turn repairs into its own division. But both of those are decisions that they made intentionally,
right?
Rather than going, I'm going to do any job that comes my way because I need to pay the bills.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and even as you're describing that contractor who, kind of has this separate division built out for repairs, I heard you use some words like division and manager and processes.
Yes.
And I think scaling, that was another one that you used. I think that's a really kind of key marker as we're looking at moving up into level 2, is just this focus on processes and scalable systems. And I know this is like, I am speaking your heart language right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's the difference between, if we really had to boil it down into simple words, it's the difference between being proactive and being reactive. If you decide deliberately, I'm going to build a division to go after repairs, that is a proactive decision.
Right.
The flip of that is, somebody called. They needed a repair. I really wanted the whole roofing job, but I need money.
Yeah.
That's reactive.
Yeah. Well, and then the ability to be able to look at that and say, okay, if I'm going to turn this into something that is going to be profitable in the long run, the way to do that is to have a system, a whole different division within my company that has
KPIs.
that has its own manager, that has its own cadence, all of those kinds of things. All of those are what you're talking about in terms of scalable systems and processes. And I think that's where, on the last episode, we talked about that this level 2, the spectrum of businesses that operate within level 2 is pretty broad. There's a lot of businesses that operate here. And I think the ones that we see that are really kind of maxing out, that are getting to that top of level 2, are the ones who are doing the best at processes, that are really saying like, we're figuring out how to scale this. We're figuring out how to systematize this. We're figuring out how to hand this off to people so that they can do it well without us having to stand over them and make sure that they're doing it the way that we want it done, because we have a system for that. We have a process that shows them how to be able to be excellent at that.
And Don, we were talking a lot about building systems and building processes, and something just occurred to me. Listeners might be going, well, that all sounds great, but I don't even know where to get started. And I think the way to get started is to ask different questions. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to uncover places in your business that maybe you've been blind to.
Yeah.
And then, ask a series of different questions, so then you can drill deeper. And that's where you put your focus to develop some processes. And, we were talking about something in between recording these episodes that I think is a great example of a level 1 contractor that's sort of struggling and looking for, like, where is he going to focus his energy to make his business better? So, and this is a classic thing that we've seen multiple times. We've got a contractor that's up and running, successful business. It's the winter here. Leads have slowed down a little bit. But we see all the data. It's not that the leads are gone. The leads are there.
Yeah.
They may not be coming as fast and furious as they were a few months ago. But our contractor is coming to us, classic. Where are my leads? I need my leads. It's marketing's issue. It's a marketing issue. Well, we have software installed with the client's permission. They are completely aware of it, where we can listen to all of the phone calls coming in. Well, we've been listening to those calls, and what we've come to find out is the person who's answering the phone at our contractor's location just hasn't been trained and hasn't been given the right scripts. Don, what were you telling me about some of the calls that you listened to?
Oh, yeah. So they'll get some phone calls that are people that are calling for other remodelers that do the same kind of service that they do, but they just, may have dialed the wrong business or heard an ad on the radio and then didn't remember exactly the name of that company. So they went and looked up something and they stumbled on our contractor and they called them. And then the person answering the phone will say, "Oh no, that's not us. I think you got the wrong number."
Oh my gosh, what a missed opportunity. Yeah. So here you have an inbound phone call of someone looking for the exact service that this company provides. And the person who's answering the phone has not been trained on how to respond to that.
Yeah, to just be able to say, "Well, we're this other company and we do very similar services. Is there something that we can help you with?"
Yeah, tell me what you don't like about your bathroom.
Yeah.
Tell me what the issue is. This other company, we're not them, but we'd be happy to answer any questions that that is a scripting exercise,
right.
And that is a role play exercise, and that is a sales training exercise.
Yeah.
And so this is something that we see level 1 contractors do over and over and over again. They hire a company like ours, or they buy leads from Angie Modernize, and then they go, the lead quality is bad. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes the lead quality is bad or the lead volume is off. But that might be the wrong place to look. Are you maximizing every opportunity when your phone rings? And I'm betting that if you're a level 1 contractor, you're not, because I'm betting you do not have defined scripts on how to answer your phone and how to respond to 10 of the most common questions that people ask.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. All right. So this is really, really good. So just to recap, as we're talking about moving from level 1 to level 2, we're talking about a few things. We're talking about shifting from being a quarterback to a coach. We're talking about moving from getting any work to getting the right kind of work. And we're talking about improving your processes. So, okay, now let's kind of shift gears and talk a little bit about moving from level 2 to level 3, because this is a really massive transition. I mean, your business has really gotten to a significant place if you're trying to really transition into this level 3 phase. And this is where I think things can really kind of get difficult for the owner in terms of figuring out, how do I make some of those transitions? I'm okay with transition. I just don't know what the transitions are that need to happen in order to be able to move into that place. So I'm going to throw one to you and just let you talk about it, because I know you love this analogy, but I think you talk about it really well. So going back to our quarterback to coach analogy, in this level 2 to level 3 transition, I think it kind of looks like moving from being a coach into being more of like a general manager. Would you agree with that? And what would you say about it?
I totally agree with that. And it's such a different mentality and mindset to have. And, just to kind of recap for our listeners, when we say level 2 contractor, this is a huge spectrum of businesses.
Yeah.
Probably, let's say, benchmark it or bookend it, 3 million to say 20 million. A $20 million business is a healthy business.
Yeah.
We're not throwing shade at that at all.
Yeah.
You have a lot to be proud of. But if you're listening to this podcast, that there are a small number of players in the home improvement industry that have made it well above that, and they are household names. How did they make that transition? And so from the owner's perspective, this is where we're saying, when you were level 1, if you were considered yourself a quarterback, you had to make that mental shift to becoming a coach. Now you're making a mental shift where you are not the coach. You are coaching other coaches. So you're turning into a general manager where you are more of an executive at a distance. You are working with division heads, department heads, managers of teams that might also have project managers under them.
Yeah.
And you're setting big picture strategy at a high level, and you are not necessarily day to day. And that is a very different place to be than where you were, 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It's less about operating and leading your business and more about leading the people who lead your business.
I think in the last episode, we said, when you're square in the middle of that level 2, every day you're just challenging yourself to be a better leader.
Yeah.
When you move into that next realm, now what you're trying to do is you're trying to build leaders.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're trying to build other leaders.
Yeah, that's right. So what that means is that you're really honing in on just a very small few key responsibilities that you in particular are overseeing. And for the most part, everything in your business is being overseen by someone else, and you're developing them so that they can oversee that stuff really, really well.
And one of the things that I've seen contractors do that when I first came across this, I kind of chuckled to myself and maybe did a little bit of an eye roll. But the older I get and the more, I do this, the more wisdom I see in it. And let me tell you what it is. It's a company that's up and running. Let's say they're $8 million, $10 million. It's a healthy company. The owner of that company will deliberately take themselves out of the traffic flow at least one day a week. Where they don't go to the office, they are unavailable by phone, they are just unavailable. They take themselves out of the traffic flow so they can give the people that they've hired the opportunity to make some of their own decisions and make some of their own mistakes.
Yeah.
And when I had a guy who he told me on the phone when we were first, talking about working together, he spends a lot of time on his mountain bike. And I kind of rolled my eyes. Oh my God, wouldn't it be nice? But you know what? I think there's some wisdom in that. And I've seen that same playbook in multiple businesses where the owner who has been first that quarterback, then that coach, as they're moving into that GM role and they're trying to develop other leaders, you have to give people the space to find their own way to do it and maybe make some of their own mistakes.
Yeah. And just to kind of step out of the picture and say, can this thing run if I'm not in the picture?
Right.
Like
what happens if I'm not here?
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. I think that's really good. Kind of understanding that shift from being a coach to being a general manager. I think another kind of shift that has to happen moving from level 2 to level 3 is, in level 2, it's really kind of been about establishing your place in the market. But then in level 3, you're really kind of getting to the place where you're dominating the market. You're really leading your local market. And, kind of as you said, like you're becoming a player that's a household name, that when anyone in your service area, and by this point, it may be a really broad service area. It may be multiple service areas, but anyone who's in those service areas is when they think about the service that your business does, your name comes to mind. That's really what you're after, is that you are top of mind for the service that your business does. And in order for that to happen, there's a lot that has to go into being able to be known as a business who, is locally reputable and trustworthy and familiar enough that people are going to have your name, on the tip of their tongue when they're ready to be able to think about, getting whatever kind of service it is that you provide.
Yeah, I think we're taking a pretty deep dive into that transition in the next episode.
Yeah.
Where we're talking about, what do the marketing changes look like when you go from being really successful and being a strong player in your market to being the dominant provider of that service.
Yeah. But I think it's just important to kind of acknowledge, like, that's the goal shift. There is a shift there in just like, how do we keep making more money? How do we keep getting more jobs, to really saying, like, how do we become the dominant player in our market? That's a different kind of goal.
I'll throw a monkey wrench into this episode here. I don't think this is said enough. We all started our own business, and I'll put myself in this category for a variety of different reasons, but most of the entrepreneurs that I met did it because they're kind of a pain in the ass and they don't work well for other people. So, having this idea that you have to make it to this level 3, I don't think that's necessarily true.
Yeah.
I think if you can decide, why are you in this game? What do you want out of it? What do you want for your family? What do you want for yourself? What do you want for your employees? And work towards that exit strategy. And that exit strategy might be to sell to a level 3 dominating player in your market before you get there, because you got different things that you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important to say too, just to to acknowledge, kind of as you said before, like if you're at the top end of that level 2 spectrum, you've got a healthy, successful, thriving business, and there might not be any need for you to say, how do I push into level 3?
Right.
You may not want to do that at all. And that's totally okay, depending on what your personal and business goals are, to be able to say that. It's just, we're trying to help you acknowledge that if you do want to go that direction, it's not going to be by doing the same things that you've always done.
No, it's going to be a whole different set of tactics and strategies and mindsets. But I'm just a big believer in, begin with the end in mind. And so, I love it. I do most of the sales for Fat Cat here. So I'm talking to people when they call in for the first time, and we're exploring whether or not we're going to be a good fit for them. And I know that I've got somebody that we can work well with when they say, I started this business 3 years ago and my goal was to get to $8 million by 5 years. When they say that, that tells me so much. It tells me they started on day one, where they set out a path for themselves and they've been measuring themselves against some benchmarks from day one.
Yeah.
And that, I think, gives you some clarity in what you do pursue, what you don't pursue. If starting out. And on the other end of that spectrum, we've got a client that, it's a father-son business, and it was the father running it for a long, 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 long time. And he did not have big aspirations to build, a mini empire in his service area. But then when his son joined the team, his son had some different aspirations.
Yeah.
So we've seen it all along the spectrum.
Yeah. So all of those things are good. It's really up to you in terms of what your goals are. We want to help provide you a roadmap along the way, and even to be able to say, hey, if you're looking for a partner who can help you in being able to get from one level to the next, we would love to be able to assist in that way. If you want to check out our free resource that we mentioned earlier, which is about 5 reasons that homeowners don't choose you online and what you can do about it, you can go to fatcatstrategies.com/homeowners and download that. Otherwise, this is it today for Digital Marketing for Contractors. We will wrap up the end of this 3-part mini-series next time, and we look forward to talking to you then. We'll see you. Digital Marketing for Contractors is created by Fat Cat Strategies. For more information, visit fatcatstrategies.com.